Thanks, Jim, and thanks to the True Blue Clue. What a great bunch of people, getting all the Conservative parties together, and thank you to you people for taking the time to bother to turn up. It really shows that people are now waking up to the mess the major parties have left us in. They've had decades to get it right, and they've still managed to muck it up. So that's why you see the successes like that came out of New South Wales from the shooters, fishers, farmers down there. Who are we in Queensland? Well, one thing we're not professional politicians. We're just ordinary people like yourselves. Too many professional politicians, and that's why we're in the mess that we're in. So we're just mums and dads and professional people and farmers and fishermen and cabinet makers and every other description of persons in the community. Who do we represent? We represent all of Queensland. We're not just representing shooters, fishers and farmers. They're our core constituents, but we represent the entire state of Queensland. However, in saying that, we do recognise that there is a major void in the provision of services between the city areas and the country areas. Now, our aim is to try and correct that imbalance. I don't know that if many of you are probably my vintage, you would remember back when the primary production sector was doing well, it flowed onto the entire community. The entire community did well. And that's reflected in some of our policies, and I'm just going to briefly touch on a couple of them. Foreign aid, although it's a federal policy, we as a state-based organisation can have input into it. Our stance on foreign aid is that we should not be giving aid to countries that hate our guts. We want to apply a pub test, and the test is, if they are able to, would they reciprocate? And if the answer is yes, then sure. We're obliged to work with our neighbours and assist our neighbours. But instead of giving cash, we want to give primary products, and more specifically, value-added primary products. Okay, so that money that's being spent overseas on attack helicopters and luxury limousines for officials, we want to send over food and clothing supplies. I'm sure the people over there have a lot more use for food and clothing than they do attack helicopters and limousines for their bosses. So, and that goes to one of our core issues. We want to enhance primary production. So how do we do that? When we do that by enhancing the whole community. We want to value add those primary products. Now, a great example would be a cannery here in the Lockyer Valley. Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of primary products. Why not? Why shouldn't we be value adding on that? It leads on to another policy that that we can enhance not only the lives of our rural sector, but that it flows onto to the urban areas, and that's foreign ownership. Now, currently the limit is set at 50% foreign ownership. We want to reduce that to 30%, but we also want to mandate that foreign entities have to contribute financially to improving the value-adding enterprises for our primary products. And when I say primary products, I'm talking about not only just growing wheat and raising cattle and growing vegetables, I'm talking about mining, I'm talking about fishing. They're all primary products. So we want that money from those foreign entities spent in those value-adding those areas. We also want them to contribute to research and development. We've got to be, the way we farm, the way we produce, we have to do it a lot smarter. And the only way that we're going to do that, and the only way that we're going to improve, is through research and development. It's something that's sadly lacking. So by boosting these areas, we're also boosting the city areas, because remember, it flows on. It leads me on to another one of our policies when I was talking about flowing. Reliable water sources. We don't want a Bradfield scheme, we want a variant of it, where some of the water, I emphasise some of the water from the north, can be utilised and sent down here to the drier areas. I know people in Alice Springs who grow grapes and mangoes in the middle of the desert because they've got access to underground water. We can get water out to Charleville or wherever. You know, they don't just necessarily have to grow cotton or wheat or sheep or cattle. They can grow anything with that. Now, those small communities start to grow. The industry in those areas grows, so they need more people to work, not only to work on the farms, but to support in the town. They need people working in the mechanical shop. They need people, then those people go and spend money in the local IGA, so then the IGA has to employ more people. Then those people need doctors and nurses and dentists and teachers, so then you get the government services flow in. So we're about rebuilding these smaller communities. The benefits of those communities then might flow on, say, to Gundawindi, and from there it flows on to Toowoomba, and from there it flows to Brisbane. So we're about building the whole state up, starting from the bottom and working our way back up. The party is set up in Queensland so that you people get the chance to choose your own representation. Not some faceless people in the city who know what's best for you or pretend to know what's best for you. We're talking about you local people. We're encouraging people to get together and form branches and find their own candidates, find support and support their own candidates, especially once they've been elected. We want local people with their finger, suitable local people. We want people who are not in it for their own benefit. We want people who are in it for your benefit. So suitable local people that have their finger on the pulse of the local issues. We want the local community to be guiding and directing them, not myself from Toowoomba or someone from else from the committee in Brisbane. We want you people having a hands-on say in your future, in your representation. So we're encouraging people to get in touch with us and come forward. We're encouraging people to become part of their own destiny. We've got a Facebook page. We've also got a web page, so www.sfpqld.org.au. Jump on and have a look at our policies. Now, just quickly, lastly, whilst we're in the business of state politics, we are actually going to stand 2 candidates in the Senate. We've drawn the outside barrier. We've got column W right down the end, but that's fine. If you want to vote for one of the other Conservative parties, please do so by all means. But consider us as a preference. Give us one of your preferences. Whilst we were intending to run an open ticket, our national committee has stepped in and said no, they're going to allocate some preferences for the Senate candidates. You will be pleased to know that all those preferences have gone to Conservative parties. We didn't have a say in that. They've gone to Conservative parties, and none of the majors are preference. We do not preference the majors. Our advice is put the minor Conservative parties after the SFFP. Whatever you do, please put Labor, the Greens and any Animal Justice Party candidates either right at the bottom of your ballot or leave them off altogether. Preferably, as that sign over there says, in the bin. Look for our candidates in column W, and Andrew Pope and Jeff Hodges are our 2 candidates, and consider us at least for a preference if you choose to vote for one of the other minor parties. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jim.
That's a bloody long 3 minutes, Clem, I tell you what.